that we do want to talk about here is going to be DK Metcalf. A lot of talk about DK Metcalf, right, over the last month. Is he going to get traded? When Geno Smith was moved, DK Metcalf was going at the 701 in Dynasty startups. We've seen him fall back pretty much an entire round. He's going at the 712, and he's 26 years old. Is the movement due to landing spot? Is it due to, people just coming off of Metcalf? Maybe a little bit of both, but I wouldn't be surprised if that ADP starts to move back up just a little bit, and maybe meet somewhere in the middle between 701 and 712 if Aaron Rodgers does in fact sign or Russell Wilson to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, Matt, your thoughts on DK Metcalf at this Dynasty startup price, and do you see him moving up or down in the near future?
To be honest, man, I think it's probably going to go down a little bit. You see, he's tied right next to George Pickens, and a lot of this just has to do with who's going to be the quarterback. You already mentioned it, so there's question marks there and how this Pittsburgh offense is going to kind of re-identify itself in a totally different way that we've not really been used to. Najee's now gone. We've got DK, and we've got Pickens. Freiermuth is still there, but we don't have a quarterback. And, him falling to the 710, I struggle to find myself in situations where I want to select DK and add him to my team just because of the issues of what he's been in his career. He's a good player, but it's not necessarily correlated to elite fantasy upside, especially the last few years. I mean, we're 3 years removed from when he was actually a top 20 wide receiver when he was in 2022 when he finished at 16. So I just think that, the wish and hope that DK can be this big time top 12 threat is kind of gone. And I don't expect that to get resurrected in Pittsburgh. If anything, I expect more of the same or worse.
Yeah. Anthony, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm with you here. And if you remember last year, Pete, we were on shows together, and I was taking JSN over DK Metcalf. I've been year by year out on DK. And the reason why, I feel like people are chasing, what year was it, when DK Metcalf had that big year?
2020.
2020. Ever since then, he had 1 year. He followed that up with 12 touchdowns, 1,300 yards. He hasn't come close to that. 2023, he had 1,100. So people are chasing that. And sure, that's his ceiling. But I feel like, year after year, we're trying to draft DK Metcalf at his ceiling, and he's underperforming. Now you go to Pittsburgh. I don't know who their quarterback is. And even if it is Aaron Rodgers, it is still an Arthur Smith offense, and the wide receiver they have in George Pickens, he's younger than DK Metcalf, and they both do the same thing. DK Metcalf's a little bit bigger. They're both the same height. They have similar skill sets. So, I just think and I love George Pickens. I'm not sure how much George Pickens are going to have. I think these two guys cannibalize each other. So, yeah, they can bring in Cousins. They can bring in Aaron Rodgers. They still have to deal with Arthur Smith. And I think Pittsburgh is one of those teams we're talking about off air. Hey, who's going to draft a running back? I think Pittsburgh, get to have Jalen Warren. I think they're addressing this running back position, whether it's somebody like Dobbins or Nick Chubb, or they spend a high pick in the draft. So
yeah,
I think we're going to get that Arthur Smith run first offense. And
I wouldn't be surprised if they do add, a player in the draft. I think with DK Metcalf, it's tough, right? Because when you look at how he was to start the year out of the gate, he versed a tough matchup against Patrick Surtain in week 1, only 29 receiving yards. He then tears off 3 straight weeks with 129, 104, and 104 against Christian Gonzalez, who he caught 10 catches against. He caught 4 catches for 104 against Jalen Ramsey. And then Carlton Davis against Detroit, he caught 7 catches for 104. And then he kind of goes on a little bit of a 2-game slide, 55, 48, 4 catches, 3 catches. A lot of targets, 11 targets in some of those games. And then he had 99. And then we really didn't see him have a game above 70 receiving yards after week 11, the rest of the year. I think that's a testament a little bit about this Seattle offense, who, if you watch my videos with defense, I think this offense just really inefficient, right? They struggled to move the football and move effectively down the field. And I think that, DK also got injured in that Atlanta game, if you remember that, right? And that was the last game that he had over 70 yards. He never came back the same. He missed a few games after. So I think that definitely played a part in it. But when looking at DK Metcalf, taking a look at some guys around him, you have Jalen Waddle, Jamison Williams, Tyreek Hill, George Pickens, Brandon Ayuk, Jerry Jeudy, Mike Evans. If I am in this area of wide receivers right now, unless like Terry McLaurin or even DJ Moore, Jordan Addison, Zay Flowers, or Chris Olave fall to me there, if DK Metcalf is the best guy on the board outside of Waddle, Jamison Williams, Tyreek Hill, George Pickens, Brandon Ayuk, Jerry Jeudy, I think I'm going to take Jamison Williams, or I'm going to look to target another position. Unless, again, maybe I have two really strong wide receivers and I'm banking on DK maybe, returning to form, and you can accept that kind of risk, but understanding that there's a strong possibility that he's going to be a high-end wide receiver too, a mid wide receiver too, right? And if you have two strong wide receivers, you're willing to take that gamble. But before moving on to our next player, I did want to pull up two questions that